I agree with you, Ashley. Yes, let's try to reschedule this. Maybe sometime when it's colder out, right? Yeah, I know everyone's tired of all this storm action and alert day coverage of storms, but unfortunately, that, of course, is what we are facing for just a few hours from now, actually, later on today. Hello, everyone. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good. This is a special edition here of our alert day coverage as we are gearing up for what looks to be a busy, at least a few hours this afternoon. With the worst of it, and then we'll have just general thunderstorms into the overnight hours. So I'm going to walk you through it. Yesterday, we were talking about how there were several pieces of data that were missing out of this scenario that we needed to have answered. Well, we've got those pieces in place now this morning, so we have a better idea of how the storyline appears to be on track right now as the new data is rolling in. I'm going to share the latest thoughts on that. In fact, you're going to see one of the latest updated model runs that just came in about 4 minutes ago. I haven't even seen the entire thing yet. So it's just not rolling in, but it'll give you a good idea of how this will play out hour by hour. It's important as I show you all the data, the maps, know where you're at in relation to everything I'm referring to at on the map. So pick out a town near you, and hopefully it'll help you out, not only on whether or not you're going to be impacted, but secondly, the timing as we go along, because it's tough for me to go back and give times for everyone. As you guys know, there's a lot of you watching, so it's not easy to do. But you can comment and ask your questions, or just want to express your opinion of how this makes you feel. You can do that on YouTube, X, and on Facebook, even Twitch. You can do that as well. I may not see it, all the comments, they do fly by fairly quick, but there are a lot of our, as I always say, our deputized meteorologists in the chat that can always help out in answering a question if you get stuck on something, okay? I already see Sean, Angela's in here. Hello, Tracy, Samantha, Todd, and Kelly. Already asking about strong tornadoes, Kelly. I can already answer that for you. No, this is not an environment for a strong tornado. So, but any tornado, just like any hurricane, is not good. Obviously, the stronger winds are bad, but any of them are not good. But I don't want you to focus too much on the tornado threat, just more on the idea of impact with this being such a soggy ground as of late. A lot of rain we've had, and they're going to get a period of strong wind, something that's been missing. It's been very stagnant the past several days. So this is going to be an obvious change in our weather coming our way. So let's hop to it. We'll start right now into, let's see. Actually, let's go into New Albany. We'll begin there. Overcast skies this morning, right? It's been overcast in many spots. And you're thinking, oh, wait a minute. No, this is good. Overcast skies. All right. That means we're not going to get any storms because it's too cloudy. Well, normally I would say yes in that scenario. And especially in the spring and autumn season, early on in both those seasons, it's a little more prevalent, that idea. But in the summertime, yeah, well, we have a lot of daylight and we have a lot of moisture in the air. We only need just a bit of a partly sunny sky and problems will develop. And as you're about to see, the sun is going to be coming out here very soon. Here's a look in Bardstown right now. Quiet. We've had a couple downpours actually not far from Bardstown already today, but nothing severe. These are just clouds around the region. All right, let's get into the temperatures. I feel like I've shown these same numbers all week, right? Upper 70s, so it's a very warm start. I do think we will get a lot warmer today than we did yesterday because we are expecting some sun. Now, we got sun yesterday at the very last minute of the day, made a difference of a few degrees. Today, we'll get it a lot earlier. And therefore, I do think 90 is reachable today. The heat index actually could push into the lower 90s. Rainfall in the past 24 hours has been really just focused on areas around Washington County. Once again, several roads were going underwater. Parts of Marion as well. Flash flood warning went out last night for that. So still very much concerned. Severe thunderstorms off to the side. Let's scoot them over. Put them on the side of the table here. Just with general thunderstorms with this system this afternoon and tonight, I am certainly concerned about the Parkways area, especially the Bluegrass Parkway, Western Kentucky, as you guys have had so much rain the past few days that just one thunderstorm is going to start causing problems. And if you get repeated rounds, you're going to run into big problems tonight. Let's hope that the first round of storms should move fast enough that I don't think it's going to cause a huge issue for longer than maybe 30 minutes at a time. But there are signs and signals that we may get some redevelopment of downpours and thunderstorms after the severe risk is over tonight. And if that's the case, they would likely aim for this area. And so if you live near a creek or a stream, or your basement's been flooding, your apartment's been flooding with all this as of late, just be extra vigilant tonight before you go to bed. We may be talking about, all clear, severe weather is over later on tonight, but there will be still some heavy downpours out there. So please just stay close to that part of the forecast. I don't want you guys to get lost in the noise. For Louisville and Indiana, we've had some rain, but not nearly as much as what our friends here to the south have had. So we can handle some of these clusters of thunderstorms, but certainly, it's going to be very heavy rainfall regardless. Still at about 2 inches per hour will be the rate. Okay, cloud cover out there. Well, let me get past the alerts. Hold on, get to cloud cover. There we go. Quite a bit of it, as you saw on the SkyTrack cameras. There's where we start to see some of the sun trying to thin out. This will all thin out a bit more as the sun gets a little higher in the sky. You'll start to see this entire cloud canopy become a little more broken, becoming partly cloudy. That'll start to evolve in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 hours into central Kentucky. And that will keep temperatures right now generally into the 70s to lower 80s until we get a little bit more sun. Now, it's already been active to the north of us around, say, Indianapolis. This was the wave we were questioning what would happen with this as it rolled in out of Kansas. This piece of it rolled right into parts of Indianapolis, didn't really connect all the way down into Louisville. So we are not dealing with a more rapid round of thunderstorms for the lunch hour today because of that. But it was strong enough that Indianapolis area did go under a severe thunderstorm warning today, mainly for hail, as these storms move through the 465, I-65 corridor earlier today. All right, so that's the a separate round altogether. Not concerned about that, just want to at least mention it. Here's what we're concerned about, and this is the main low pressure itself that has been developing coming in off the plains. It is easy to see here on the visible satellite and the radar, spinning over central areas of Missouri. Couple things. It is going to be tracking to the north and east. As it does so, it will soon develop a little curl to it, almost like the comma on your keyboard. All right, it'll take on a comma shape. That will be the first piece of severe weather we will likely see develop here, and this is going to happen fast. I mean, within the next 1 to 2 hours, we're going to start getting development here and probably warnings on that. That piece, we're going to be watching it carefully. It's going to scoot right across Illinois into central Indiana, keeping that same comma shape look to it. Now, initially, as it scoots into Indiana, we're going to be watching Lawrence County, Jackson, and Jennings, because you could get what we call the tail end Charlie, where the very tail end storm at the end of it could rotate. There is a low end tornado threat with this kind of a scenario as these pass through Indiana. I just don't know if it's going to stay north of US 50 altogether and stay more toward Indy, or will again develop far enough south to move into parts of our Indiana counties. Timing on that is going to be roughly around, say, 3 o'clock or so today, 3 to 4, somewhere in that range. So that's number one that we're watching. Now, what is going to be interesting about that scenario is that as that low moves by, the curl will become very dramatic. And here's what I mean by that. It starts off as a backward C shape or the comma shape. Once it gets into Indiana, near Cincinnati, just west of the Ohio border, it will have a curl that goes up through Indiana, and then suddenly it'll connect to a new line of storms right here that will absolutely just fire right over southwest Indiana and west Kentucky. That will be the main line that we will be tracking this evening that has the greatest severe potential for just about everyone watching. So the comma first moves on by through Indiana. That's the trigger for really to instigate the party here. Once it zooms by, it helps then in triggering the main line that will then form just south of it that would then impact the rest of wave country into the evening. It's a 1-2 type of punch that will happen. So that's how the storyline looks to me today. A lot of the data is kind of lining up with that idea. There still could be some adjustments, don't get me wrong, but that's where we are as of this morning. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center just not long ago decided they're considering issuing a tornado watch for parts of Illinois, around St. Louis, down into the Jonesboro area today in Arkansas. They may do that within the next hour to account for the very beginning stages of the curl. Now, they're going to connect that watch potential all the way down in case the curl connects all the way down rapidly instead of just staying a little bit of a hover, if you will, that moves into Indiana. Fully expect, based on where they're thinking a watch will be and based on the radar data, we will have some type of a watch, likely a tornado watch, that will come out looking something like that this afternoon. And then whether or not we get a downstream, likely severe thunderstorm watch, more for east of 65, I don't know. But that may be how the watch progression looks today. So this one that would cover a good chunk of at least our counties, it probably would not get issued until after the noon hour today. It depends on how rapidly that curl moves out of Illinois. But this won't be the first one, and then we'll be next in line after that. Okay, so that's the watch status. Let's get into the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. This is the most updated look. It has the enhanced risk all the way down into Louisville. This is not a shock. Everything kind of falls east with the low pressure, right? Gets adjusted. All of Indiana under enhanced risk, FYI. And then you get down into Kentucky around Louisville now is in it all the way. And then there's that curl because the southern part of this is slower to move. It's typically the case with lines of storms. The southern tail does not move as fast as the piece where the low pressure is. So it just zips on by. I mean, this will be in Pennsylvania while the southern part is still dragging its feet near the land between the lakes area. So, but that also causes a weakening that happens. The line itself will start to just weaken because it loses its parent. This is its mom. The low pressure is mommy. As the low moves away from it, it just loses its parent. So therefore, the amount of forcing begins to weaken. We lose the fuel. It's overnight hours. So that's why I think at that point, we start to decrease the severe risk, but we start to keep an eye on the flash flooding potential, especially being horizontal east and west. Anyway, that's the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Enhanced for areas north, including Louisville, north and west of Louisville as well. For today, slight risk for everyone else. Breaking this down into the more specific threats, your tornado threat is mainly, it's a low-end risk, don't get me wrong, but it is slightly elevated for Indiana, and it's mainly for the curl of the low, for the tail end Charlie idea. As that low moves on by, will we get any cells that form on the tail end of that as it swings by Southern Indiana right into the I-71 corridor? It's possible. As I think was it Angela? I'm not sure who asked the question now. Would this be a strong tornado scenario? And this is the reason why it wouldn't be, is that this would be very brief tornadoes, but still could trigger some warnings for that as it moves on by. It's not including all the way down to the south. A couple of reasons. One, you don't have as much of a turning of the wind. There's barely enough turning of the wind in that zone, in the tornado zone. It's mainly unidirectional, but it's even more unidirectional. In other words, there's not a lot of turning of the wind as you go from the ground above your head. So most of it will be straight line wind. Speaking of that, your straight line wind potential is the main reason, not the tornado potential. The straight line winds are the main reason for the enhanced risk. And this is just because of how warm we're going to get today. And once these bowing segments form on the radar, it's going to look like a little snake once it all connects. As I always say, anytime the line wiggles, it's not good. You got to watch your bowing segments for straight line winds, every little bowing out part. Wind speeds could get up to 70 miles per hour in a few cases. And you also have to watch for not only brief spin-up tornadoes with those, but maybe a little bit of hail too mixed in with some of that. Although your hail threat, as you'll see here, is much more to the west, where they will likely be supercells to start with today in Illinois, where they're about to issue the first watch. Your hail potential is actually higher at that phase of the day. Not so high once it gets more into a line and it arrives here this evening. Those are the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. Let me show you what CSU has, Colorado State AI Learning Module, breaking it down. Your tornado is in the first box top right. Again, mainly focused on the path of the low for areas north of Louisville. Your hail potential, same storyline, low end potential overall, because it is quite warm and humid. So a lot of the hail is going to melt by the time it reaches the ground level. It still could get some. They could get up to quarter size, but again, a lot of it will be melting as it falls. But the highest of the threats, and it's right over us, is the straight line wind potential this event. I think it's still the case on all the data I've looked at as well. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into the outlook. Before I do, is everyone okay? Because I know there's a lot of you here. I promise I'm not trying to ignore anyone, but I want to go in a linear fashion as I can. And for those that just are in a hurry and don't want me to ramble, they want to get to the point, and I'll come back around to some of your questions. But I just want to make sure there's anything big I'm missing here. Nope. Everyone looks good. All right. Everyone knows where they are on the map. Type 3 if you know where you are on this map. And if you're not on this map and you're watching from somewhere else, you don't have to say anything. I just want to make sure everyone's good. Because here's what we're going to do. This is, there's a million models out there now, right? This is the HRRR model, high-res model, designed for thunderstorm scenarios. So that's its specialty. So that's why I like showing it on days like this. Okay, thank you. See a lot of the threes. Thank you, Daniel, Noah, Debbie, Vicky, Leslie. Thank you. Hi, Leslie. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to take this hour by hour. Pay attention to where you're at. I'll try to go as slow as I can. And this is not going to be exact, so let me exercise some caution. But boy, it does give you a good storyline of what we feel is the likely scenario to play out today. All right, here we are, 10:30, cloudy, overcast, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we move on to 5 in the afternoon. Now, once we get to 5 in the afternoon, that is where we start to get the at this point, let me try to back this up a slight bit. I should have put a pause point. This is the comma moving in right there around 2 to 4 o'clock. That comma moves into areas into northwest Indiana or northwest areas of wave country around Bedford. All right, so that moves in. But what this latest run does, again, I told you just updated, is it wants to go ahead and already start connecting the southern piece to it fairly quick. So you've got a mixed thing happening. It's initially going to be the curl, but it wants to try to already become one line. The quicker it gets into a line, two things happen. You cut down your tornado threat and you cut down your hail threat. But the straight line wind threat will become the dominant feature. That's all going to happen fast over a very short amount of time. But the time frame we're looking at, 2 to 5 for Indiana, you will likely experience the first round of that low, that curl. For Louisville and for the rest of Kentucky, it will depend on how long it takes for it all to connect and cross the river and become one big giant piece. We're thinking that is going to be generally around the 5 o'clock hour through about 7. So here we are at 5. It's not quite into Louisville at this point at 5 p.m. If this holds verbatim, models rarely are exactly right. You have to give a buffer of some cases 2 hours on some of these models. Especially if they start to bow out, they do move a little faster than the models say. But it's got us at 86, quite humid outside. Let me advance this. Here we are at 6 o'clock, still right over the city of Louisville. Showers, storms into Grayson County. Advance this. Here we are at 7 o'clock now into our eastern counties. You can see how some parts of it focusing, other parts weakening a little on our southern tier. But this is where a lot of the wind is still ongoing. Still in the 80s in advance of it. Rain, cooled air, 70s in Louisville at 7 o'clock. Continue on, heads off to the east, and here's where we get a bit of the turning here, the tail that drags into the night. And this is where we got to watch for this to be slowing down and producing the flash flooding threat. We're hoping it's a little further south than what's displayed here, but it may be very well along the parkways that this is happening, leading to very high amounts of rainfall. Again, even an inch of rain is going to cause a problem. And you can see even another cluster that tries to move in around 4 in the morning tomorrow. Not necessarily a severe threat, but more rounds of heavier rain and then spotty storms tomorrow afternoon that we are not as concerned about. They'll be mainly east of 65. So really looking at a time period for everyone right now on the worst of the severe weather, I would say 2 p.m. To be fair, let's go 2 to 10. I think it's a good window, but the most active window is likely going to be, I would say, a 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock window. So about a 6-hour window. That's when we'll have the most of the alerts going out, warnings, things crawling on the TV screen, your weather radio going off. Now, the good news is for you all, that's when the majority of our newscasts will be on already. So we'll be on the air throughout much of this event already. So you don't have to worry about whether or not we're going to be here to get you through it. We're going to be talking about it. Now, we may not be wall to wall unless we have a tornado warning or we have a damaging wind scenario that is confirmed doing damage, even straight line winds heading into especially the metro. Then that's different. That too will constitute a wall to wall scenario. So there's different ways that we will be on, but I can assure you we'll be on frequently, at least every few minutes. You will see our face and we'll be providing updates. So let's keep the TV on, keep the Wave Weather app on. You can stream it as well if you need to do some things around the house, if you can't be around the TV physically. And if you watch our streaming channel, which most of you are watching right now, anytime we do an interruption on TV, it will interrupt right here. So you also get information that way too. All right. So that's the game plan on how this is going to play out today. Let me show you the chances hour by hour. I'm going to keep them fairly low until we get that curl out of Illinois to roll out. And then once that happens, we'll begin to ramp it up. We'll go with only about a 60 to maybe 70% chance for now. I want to see how much of this will connect. Obviously, there's going to be places where it's 100%, but we need to get the configuration down a little more, and we'll adjust that in the app. So your location may look a little different than what I'm showing here on the app, but that's the general idea. And again, 2 to 10, I think is a good fair window to target, but it will be a little bit closer range for the actual super weather. Note again that spike late tonight of 60%. That's with general heavy rain moving in, not severe. So, but still just as dangerous with flash flooding, especially for Kentucky. Okay. Any questions I can answer on this one here? Well, you got me. Carrie, we'll be on YouTube or just on TV? It's only on the streaming channel. So it's on the Wave Weather app. It's a separate channel. It's not a TV network. We're trying to actually get it to be, but it's not at the moment. So it's just a stream itself. But if you will get notified on YouTube if we do a special thing of live coverage and streaming. You should get notified either by YouTube or on the app, Carrie, if that happens. But in general, our streaming channel, which is on the Wave Weather app, it's a separate ordeal. Wave Weather Now, you can get that on. You can get that as an app on the Fire Stick. Roku is on there, Apple TV. It's a separate app. You know, you can have your HBO and Disney Plus, and then you have Wave on there, and you just click on the Wave Weather Now section, and it's like watching the old school Weather Channel days. It's constant maps, alerts, crawls at the bottom of the screen, radar's constantly on. And then if we are on TV, we need to jump on, it will interrupt the signal and jump on there. So it's a really good setup to have. We're the only station in town that's able to do that. Angela, yeah, I saw this too. Oklahoma had over 100 mile-per-hour winds yesterday. No, we're not expecting that, thank goodness. They had a different scenario with very intense heat in the 90s and a dry punch of air. It just, I mean, we knew it was going to be bad, and that's why the moderate risk was issued for them. But I do think up to 70 mile-per-hour winds can develop. But as I've been mentioning, you only have to even get gusts over 50, 55 in this environment of a saturated ground to start getting tree damage and uprooted trees, especially your older trees. If you have one that's leaning in your yard right now and then you've been having heavy rain, keep an eye on that one. Make sure it doesn't lean anymore. Those are the ones that we usually see in the older neighborhoods, and especially Louisville, that topple and get uprooted. They don't break and snap. It's just the root system can't support them. So it's a little different than intense winds that just break branches off and limbs and throw them everywhere. this is one of those that can just easily push trees, just tip them over. And a 55 mile per hour wind can certainly do that, which is below severe limits. So that's why I want to make sure you understand you may not get a warning, but you can still run into some problems with that. Just depends on where you're at. Angie, do you think the cycle will repeat next week into Kansas? I haven't looked a lot at Kansas, but they will likely get at least more front range, I know, on the severe side. Okay. I think everyone's all right. Let me get into the other side of the storyline here. And again, I appreciate you being patient and just hang tight on how this is going to play out today. Don't get too worked up and nervous. This is not a big outbreak. This is not anything I haven't seen before. I see this set up several times every summer. So this is nothing like, oh, wow, this is going to be one where we need to really just shut the whole city down. No, it's not like nothing like that. This is a very typical summer setup than spring, but it can cause problems, and it usually does, just because we're in a different mode now. All right, school's out, we're trying to get stuff done outside. It's warmer, it's more humid, and these type of events, if you're not paying attention, the weather could just change so fast, and everyone has their patio furniture out. So we should make sure everyone's just ready, get everything anchored down. It's not asking a lot to kind of get things braced and ready for an active afternoon for one day, right? Chris, QPF thoughts, amount of rainfalls referring to through Thursday, very blotchy. I mean, overall 1 to 3 is reachable, but that's why I didn't show the map, because it is too hard to read even some of the numbers, because in some areas, like you saw in Washington County, Kentucky last night, you end up with amounts that could go 2 to 3 inches, but just on the other side of the county, barely anything in the gauge. I don't think it's going to be that spotty initially with the first round tonight. I think a 1 to 3 inch band with the thunderstorms rolling in is pretty likely. It's the overnight activity that my confidence is a little lower on. But I believe, last I saw it, we're not able to display it, but we call it flash flood guidance. What is the limit that your particular county can handle right now at an hourly rainfall rate? There are several areas, Nelson, LaRue, Washington, Marion, even parts of Hardin County. Your limit is a ½ inch an hour. That's it. You exceed a ½ inch an hour and you're going to start to flood. And you will get that rate out of these thunderstorms. So we're going to be watching you all carefully. I'm hoping they'll move fast enough to where you can at least cut down on some of that. The problem is if they're moving really fast, it also means the wind's really strong. So it's like, it's a balancing act. But the second part, the overnight round, will not move as fast. And that is where problems could come in. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let me get into the next part and then I get ready, because I got a lot of data to still fine tune to get ready for the midday show coming up. I do want to mention the heat. Obviously, this is going to be a whole other ordeal. It'll be slow to arrive initially for Thursday and Friday. But once we get into the weekend, it really takes over. And this is going to be a stubborn high to break down. It's always interesting, the first heat wave of the season, because you battle the rainy season. So everything's green. We're having heavy rain today and tonight. So your heat index is high. Your actual thermometer does undercut what the models say. Now, once you have a few days, there's no rule on this, but I've noticed generally about 4 days of dry weather, you start to then match what the modeling is saying. And you can then get into the mid 90s at that point. I think that may slowly evolve, because this is looking like an entire week of heat coming our way, especially for next week here. So the heat will gradually build each and every day. But the heat index, the first time you get the heat index of 100 or higher, is always a tough one. We may have an alert day out for the first time that we reach 100 for a feels like temperature, which I'm thinking is going to be Sunday. And we're not going to put an alert day out on every hot day. We'll be here forever. But I think the very first one is important, because that very first one causes more problems. More people are sent to the ER on that particular day of the year when it happens. So just want to make sure you guys are aware of the heat and the toll it takes on you. Even if you're healthy, working out in this heat is not something you just want to do, especially the first few days and you're not used to it yet. Here's an example of what we're looking at: 92, 93, 95 starting this weekend. Heat index gradually just going up over 100. It could get to heat advisory level. And here's the 10-day where I still think it's going to go for a while here. I think we're going to be looking at temperatures staying in the 90s all the way through probably next weekend. And then we'll see if we get into the eastern side of a high pressure or not to get some thunderstorms, what we call the MCS pattern that drop down. There's still some questions on how that may evolve, but there is a stormio trend that is lining up now closer to 4th of July. Remember, the heat is when the guideline for 4th of July that was showing up. The heat arrived a few days in advance. So now 4th of July may bounce back into an active severe weather setup. We'll see. But right now, I think there will be an interruption to this. I'm hoping that we don't just hold on to these 90s for the rest of the year. That'd be awful. But it is going to be a hot weekend, guys, so please take it easy. All right, I got to run. There's a lot of you here. I appreciate you watching. I know you guys want to ask main questions. If I can hang out here with you all day, I would, and answer them all. But unfortunately, I have to get ready for a show. But I hope you find these updates helpful. We just want to at least get you an idea of where we're at here for the day. And I'm going to be on the air on the news today. And every newscast, I'm probably going to be giving you an updated timing. So stay tuned for midday, the noon show. I'll be on TV at about 1:50 as well, doing an update there on the TV side. And then obviously on Wave News at 3, I'll be back on with Myra. And we'll just see where we're at that point and guide you through it. But as of right now, all the timing I just gave you for this afternoon, this early evening, appears to be where all the data is locking into, and based on satellite interpretation and looking at the radar, that seems to be matching up as well. All right, stop rambling now. I appreciate you all. See you coming up at 11 a.m. Stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you on the flip side.